Hello again, this is Afr0Blu3. Now, as I'm sure you know, this year marks Sonic's 20th anniversary, and Sega are releasing Sonic Generations to celebrate. Now, Sonic's had a major influence on not only the video game industry, but ourselves as well, with some of us maybe holding him a little closer to our hearts than we healthily should. At any rate, in this multi-part special, I'm going to be looking at the original Mega Drive games, as well as Sonic CD on the Mega CD. So, without any further ado, let's dive straight into it.
Let's start with the creation of Sonic, as his success is in large part derived from his birth. As most of you will know, Sega held a company-wide competition for a new mascot, something that could topple Mario and give their business a firmer foothold in the gaming industry. The brief for this mascot must have read like every designer's worst nightmare. He must represent the company and established brand, he must appeal to both children and teenagers, and he must appeal to a global audience and be acceptable to all cultures. Though there were a lot of seriously considered entries, one of which would later form the groundwork for Rise Star, the winner was Naoto Oshima's Mr. Needlemouse. This was combined with Yuji Naka's ideas for a character that could curl up into a ball to play with momentum, and the character started being refined to become the Sonic we know and love. Sonic was designed to be everything Mario wasn't. When Mario was created, his appearance was based on the limitations of the technology he was born into. He was designed to be simple for the system to display. Sonic wasn't confined to those limitations, so it was only natural that where Mario was slow, Sonic was fast, while Mario was patient enough to hear "your princess is in another castle" time and time again. Sonic would tap his foot impatiently if the player left him idle for even a few seconds. Now, I could go on to talk in detail about Sonic's fangs, his band, or his girlfriend Madonna, all ideas that were later dropped, or how Robotnik was designed to be easy for kids to draw, but then we'd be here forever. Let's talk about the actual game. Sonic 1 gave us 6 zones, each with 3 acts, as well as the final confrontation in the single-act final zone. This was the game Sega pinned all their hopes on. Before this game was released, the Mega Drive was being outsold by the TurboGrafx 16. After Sonic came along, well, Nintendo didn't know quite what had hit them. Sonic dazzled TV commercials and display stands in stores with its vibrant graphics and definitive style. The original Sonic was one of the best-looking games of its time, with varied palettes and ever-changing scenery. Every zone is instantly recognizable, unlike Mario where many levels look similar. From the enemies to the background objects, everything was bursting with vibrant color and was beautifully animated. This game was made to make you think, "Oh wow, what's that? That's cool!" The graphics were even used to emphasize the sense of velocity, with parallax backgrounds emulating depth of field. The programmers wanted to simulate the sensation of being in a car, with the foreground moving much more quickly than the background. That said, if you ask someone what makes Sonic, well, Sonic, they would more than likely say speed. I disagree with this, as it's actually somewhat rare that Sonic ever maintained speed for long periods of time in his first outing, unless you're very skilled. Instead, I would say that Sonic is built around momentum. Taking a look at the design of almost any level, you can see that as soon as Sonic has enough space to get to full speed, there's a group of enemies, some traps, or even just a wall ready to stop him again. There was no spin dash in the first title, so getting up a slope or through a loop meant taking a run up to it. Gaining top speeds meant curling into a ball on a slope, and the jumping mechanics were also reliant on how much momentum you'd built up. Despite only using one button to jump, Sonic's jump height, distance, and angle varied greatly depending on what he was doing before he jumped, what angle the terrain he jumped from was at, essentially how much momentum was behind him as well. Easiest to see when you bounce off an enemy from a great height. Now, Mario was a popular platformer because it nailed its jumping controls, and Sonic Team clearly knew this. You have a great degree of control over Sonic's leaps, and can make anything from a small hop to a great bound, with ease. You can steer Sonic in the air, and the physics behind all this just feel right, feel natural, and most important of all, they're intuitive. You can come into Sonic 1 having never played a game before and feel at home with precision jumps within mere moments. It is the mastery of these mechanics that Sega have failed to replicate in later titles such as Sonic 4 Episode 1, and these are the mechanics fans are crying out for in the current crop of games. Those fine-tuned controls were backed up by brilliant level design. Though more linear than later entries into the series, Sonic 1 still offered multiple paths throughout its levels. There was a degree of replayability built in at its core. The designers did want to show off Sonic's speed, so that's why there are so few sections where you can actually maintain it. If you were gunning it flat out the entire game, then the speed wouldn't seem so impressive. Applying the top speed in moderation made it a more memorable and exciting experience when you did achieve it, and was a brilliant move on level designer Hirokazu Yasuhara's part. There were tricky jumps laid throughout every level to take full advantage of the work put into the physics, and to make sure players knew how much work had gone into it. There were many tense moments to be had, and always a new challenge on the horizon. These challenges were ever-changing as the game brought in new gimmicks and new enemies every step of the way. Marble Zone has you riding blocks over lava and literally digging your way into the zone. Spring Yard shows off the influence Pinball had on the game. The Labyrinth Zone placed Sonic underwater, robbing him of his speed and his ability to breathe, even if it was created through a misconception that hedgehogs can't swim. Starlight had its seesaws and fans, and Scrap Brain just plain wanted you dead. The other surprise came when you realised the game was built for two types of players. Those who wanted to finish it with the fastest time, essentially speedrunners, and those who wanted to grab every ring and defeat every enemy for a high score. It effortlessly catered to both camps, and again, this is thanks to some of the most clever level designs ever seen. Adding to the replay value of the title were the Chaos Emeralds. To obtain a Chaos Emerald, you had to finish an act with 50 rings and leap into a giant ring after the goalpost to access the special zone. These levels were surreal and got mixed reactions, but did add a great reason to return to the game for completionists. Beating the game with all 6 emeralds only makes a small change to the ending, but if you don't grab them, you'll see a scene of Robotnik juggling the emeralds with a try again sign, just daring you to go back for another run. While doing all of this, you were listening to a soundtrack that simply fueled your desire to go faster, fueled your desire to win, and were built around solid melodies. You can hum any tune from the game and everyone will know it. The soundtrack improves the entire experience tenfold and is among the most famous collections of video game music. Sonic wouldn't be Sonic without his nemesis though, Dr. Robotnik. Robotnik was there at the end of every zone to antagonize you, and he was the best form of boss. There was always a very distinct pattern you had to figure out in order to defeat him. It's thanks to these patterns that he is ultimately fair. The player should never lose to a boss if they employ the right strategy, and that rings entirely true for Robotnik. The Mad Genius is constantly mixing up his strategy to keep you on your toes, and not a single encounter felt tired or recycled. Even today I can fight him with a smile on my face. If I have one issue with Sonic's first adventure, it would be with the order of the 4th and 5th zones. I always found the placement of Labyrinth Zone to be strange, as it's far more intimidating than the Starlight Zone which follows it. Honestly, Starlight is a walk in the park in comparison, and then Scrap Brain goes back to where the difficulty curve should have picked up from Labyrinth Zone. When you add in that Scrap Brain Act 3 is a recolored Labyrinth Zone, I can't help but feel that Starlight should have been before Labyrinth instead of after it. At any rate, Sonic was a commercial success for Sega and became an internationally recognized superstar. Mega Drive sales rocketed, and in the US, a smart move to bundle the console with Sonic as opposed to Altered Beast meant that the company could ensure everyone's first encounter with the hardware would be an amazing outing with the blue blur, and a truly epic experience that would have them coming back for more. And sure enough, 1 year later, in 1992, they did indeed come back for more.